welcome to the One Life Church devotional series where we cover the entire Bible in 20 months. Well, we're in chapter 7 and 8 of Amos today. Remember, this farmer from down south had gone up to Bethel to the northern kingdom because Jeroboam had got totally out of hand. Although he had been a powerful military ruler, he had allowed idolatry into the country, and so the fruit of that had been injustice to the poor, worshipping of idols, and turning away from God. And so God raised up this farmer, sends him to the northern kingdom, and tells him to prophesy. Now, what he does in chapter 7 and 8 is he sees a series of visions that depict the coming day of the Lord. And so it says this: God formed a swarm of locusts at the beginning of the late crop. Now you can see he's a farmer. So most of his visions have got to do with farming. They've got to do with agriculture. He sees this swarm of locusts busy forming at the late crop. And it goes on to say after the king's mowing. So in other words, they'd already taken in the harvest and they had already taxed the poor. Really taxed the poor. So the poor at the end of harvest season, when they should have food on the table, had been taxed. And so he says, I see the swarm of locusts. At that particular point, Amos prays and he says, Jacob is so small. He's not going to survive this locust swarm. Now he uses the word Jacob because Jacob, remember, he was the younger brother, of the twins there, of younger than Esau. And basically saying, God, you can't blot out Jacob, because Jacob was the one who was given the promise. He's small and he's not going to handle this locust swarm, but you've given him a promise. So that the Lord relents. Amazing, hey? And then he sees a picture of a scorching fire, where guys burn fire breaks or just a fire goes through the land. And again, he says, look, Jacob's so tiny. And God relents again. Which is quite amazing, actually. It shows us, God is able to do whatever he wants to do, but he listens to our prayer. And when he shows us things, we can intervene as we talk to God. It's not that God changes his mind willy-nilly. No, he's waiting to see if someone's going to stand in the gap and pray. And so if you see a swarm of locusts, or you see disaster coming on your family, or coming on your church, or coming on your business, or coming on your friends, you can intercede and expect God to step in. And then he says he sees another picture of Israel as overripe fruit. Now, this is a horrible looking banana. And, even these little oranges are all shriveled up now. We've obviously been neglecting them, busy running around doing other things. And he says, I see Israel like horrible fruit, and he talks about this. I'm not going to squash it, but imagine if this would be so easy to squash, so easy to destroy. And he sees these pictures. He says, listen, the day of the Lord is coming where God is going to squash you like squash fruit. And then he sees the violent striking hand of God on the pillars of the temple at Bethel. Remember, there was a golden calf there. They were bowing down to the gods of sex and wind and money, and he says this temple's going to come crashing down. At this point, a guy called Amaziah begins to object to Amos's preaching and says, listen, you better run, boy, because this word is going to get to Jeroboam that you're preaching what you're preaching. This is what Amos says to him in verse 14. I was neither a prophet or the son of a prophet, but I was a shepherd, and I took care of sycamore trees. So I had orchards and I had sheep. But the Lord took me from tending the flock and said, go and prophesy to my people Israel. Now then, hear the word of the Lord. And he says to Amaziah, listen, stop stopping me. Listen, calamity's even coming to your house. There's this huge warning that's coming from God because of your injustice to the poor, because of your idolatry, because of turning away from God. God's not, even though he's promised over Israel, he's not going to let that go. And so tomorrow we're going to see how this book ends with an incredible triumph, a word of hope. But for now, it's a sober warning for those who've turned their back on God.